Good morning, everybody. We are here today to talk about this research project, and I'm going to share my screen here so hopefully everybody can see that and look on with me. This document that you're looking at, which basically kind of takes you step by step through the entire process for this research project or semester project, as we sometimes call it also. This will be posted as a separate document in the module. So if at any time you would like access to the document without necessarily having to go through this narration, definitely feel free to click on that. But the good thing about having both is that I can go through here and, obviously break some things down, explain some things, hopefully maybe clarify some things where it might not be as clear if you're just reading it on your own. So again, that's the purpose for having both. So for this project, we're going to be dealing with 6 works, and these are the 6 works that we've been through as we've worked through the modules so far. Notice, as it says here, it will not include Oedipus and Hamlet. Even though those works are on our syllabus, they are in our last module, which we have not gotten to yet. And so it would not be fair to hold you responsible for those works or expect you to, do an A-level presentation on works that you haven't actually studied yet. So regretfully, I'm going to request that you not use those for the project. But definitely anything that we've covered up to this point, you can. Something that's going to be important here. Let me move down here just a tad. So you're going to present to me a presentation. This can be a PowerPoint, it can be a Prezi, but it needs to be in probably, I would say, one of those 2 formats. You're going to present at least 10 slides. And within those 10 slides, now you can get as creative with this as you want. As it says here, you can use video, you can use photographs, you can use images, you can use voice recordings, anything you can think of to enhance the creativity of the project. And, obviously, the better the project looks, the better the presentation, the more creativity that goes into it, the better your grade will be. Also, it's going to require you to use some scholarly sources. I think at least one. It's going to require you to cite those sources. You're going to have to cite our Norton Anthology, our textbook. So correct citing sources, using the right types of sources, using MLA citations correctly, all of that will be factored into your grade. And notice the part that's highlighted here. Use your own words unless you're quoting and citing your source. And I can only accept this project if you include the required sources and quotations. So failure, I may be jumping a little bit ahead here, but while we're on it, we might as well go ahead and say failure to include this requirement of the project can result in a failing grade for the project, and it could result in the project not being accepted at all. One of the first things I'll look for when I open these, I'll be going through and kind of combing through to see if you even have citations. If you turn in a project with no citations at all, again, most likely it's not going to be accepted. And you probably will get an email notification from me, I'm sorry, but I cannot accept your project at this time. Please go back and do XXX. And again, that is just to make sure that we get all those requirements met. If you have sources cited, but let's say you're not citing them correctly, that will probably simply factor into your grading. Now, that could result in lowering the overall grade for your project, so just be forewarned of that, because you will be responsible for, not only having those citations, but making sure they're correct. And within this module, you've got an entire folder on how to do that, how to look for those sources, where those sources need to come from, and how to cite them using MLA. All right, so let's move ahead a little bit here. So the next part of this just gives you a step-by-step guide as you put together your presentation. Again, we're looking for a minimum of 10 slides. What is going to go on those slides? It has to follow this order here. All right, so let's look at slide 1. What are the requirements? You're going to put your name, our class, the date, the title of your presentation. The title of your presentation is not the title of the text that you're discussing. Okay, so don't just say Epic of Gilgamesh if you're presenting on Gilgamesh. Don't just say the Aeneid if you're presenting on the Aeneid. What is it that your presentation is going to explore about this work? What is it going to tell us? What are we going to learn about this work from your presentation? So just like I always say, you need to put a lot of thought into how you title your papers. You're going to put thought into how you title this presentation. Slide 2. Give some details and pictures of the country or place that the text is from. These works come to us from all over the world. As I always tell my students, we're covering up roughly 1,000 years worth of literature, and they come from so many varied places throughout the world. So what is something unique about that place where this story comes from? Remember, one of the first things we talked about in this course is how stories reflect the time and place and the values of the culture that they come from. So we're going to start there. Once you get past the slide 1 and all of that, setting the groundwork there. In slide 2, you're going to talk a little bit about the place where the work came from. What is its history? What are some of those values and beliefs of the people from that culture? Slide 3, you're going to give some details and photos about the author of the text. Now, of course, again, we're dealing with very ancient works in some cases. Some of the works that we've been over have credited authors. There are a few that don't. There are a few that we have no idea who actually wrote them. When we're talking about the Epic of Gilgamesh, for example, we don't know who wrote those first texts. Those names have been completely lost to us. It could have been several people that had a hand in that. The same is true of the Hebrew Bible. We don't really know. So in those cases, you don't really have to tell us about the author. But as it said here, explain why and how the text came into existence. Somebody wrote it. What do scholars believe happened in this case? How do they believe this work came to be? Now, obviously, if it does have a known author, then this is where you give us some background, some biography of that author. Slide 4, explain in your own words the significance of the text. In other words, why does this text continue to be studied and talked about? What do you think is important for us to know about this text? Now, I feel like, by the time you get into slide 4, this is where some of your citations of your scholarly sources should be coming into play, right? Because I'm not expecting you to necessarily know this information on your own. This might be where citing the text can come into play, right? You might go into the Norton introduction to pull some of this information out. Slide 5, and this should be fairly concise and short. Give a short summary of what happens in the text. Explain the climax or turning point of the story. Think about the most important events in the text. All right, so, don't waste a lot of space on this, but just very briefly in that slide, you should be able to provide a capstone of what are the most important points in the events that happen in that story. And again, that's not going to be the main purpose of your presentation. I want to stress that. It's just something I want you to include to make sure that you really understand the story and the events that happen in the story. Okay, so my recording time is 15 minutes, and I'm coming up on roughly about 12 minutes at this point. So just to make sure that I don't run out of time or get cut off, I'm going to go ahead and end this first recording here. I'm going to pick up in recording 2, and we'll go through the rest of the steps here. Hopefully we'll get them all in the next video. So if not, I'll do a third video, but we'll see how that goes. All right, so signing off here, and I'll see you in the next video.